Excuse me. Okay, we're having all kinds of technical issues, and I do apologize for that. This is about my 10th time attempting this. So, as we just talked about, the Horatio Alger narratives really appeal to us as Americans because they feed into our idea of ourselves as the United States is a land of opportunity. This idea that anyone in America can become president, rich, famous. Jobs and education are open to everyone equally, social class is achieved, and then I ultimately decide what class to belong to. When we look at ourselves from the history of the dawn of man, we quickly see a change over time. When we were a hunter-gatherer society, we had the lowest levels of social stratification, which makes sense because we're moving around from place to place. We don't own a lot of possessions, just what we can carry. As we move into farming communities, this requires private property. So now it's like, I own this farm. You cannot farm here without my permission or paying me or something. I'm not going to leave the farm and go farm somewhere else, which is very different than the hunter-gatherer idea, which is, I'm using the space right now, but I'm going to leave. And if you come use it after me, that's fine. So that greatly and sharply increases social inequality. It has a little dip there at the industrial age, which you can see still incredibly high levels. And then post-industrial, those levels increase again. For us to have these conversations, we're going to have a shared understanding of terms. So we're going to have a lot of just definition of terms over the next few slides. The first definition would be social inequality, which is simply the situation where individuals, families, or members of large structures, neighborhoods, or cities vary in access to valuable resources like wealth, income, education, healthcare, and jobs. Social stratification, people use it interchangeably with social inequality, but that's not accurate. Social stratification refers to those deeply embedded hierarchies that provide different groups with varied rewards, resources, and privileges through established structures and relationships that both determine and legitimate those outcomes. In other words, the structures themselves, that hierarchy, makes it so I start to see the way things are as the way things are supposed to be and just how they work. Social stratification refers to a system by which a society ranks categories of people in a social hierarchy. It is a trait of society, meaning it does not reflect individual differences, but society's structure. It's persistent over generations. Social mobility happens very, very slowly. It's universal, but it varies in type and how much there is. And it involves an ideology that justifies this existence of stratification. Now, what do I mean by ideology? Ideology refers to a complex set of beliefs and values that support a society's social stratification systems and distribution of income, wealth, and power. The American ideology emphasizes the centrality of individual achievement, equal opportunity, and hard work. So these ideologies help me to see inequality as the natural order of things. It becomes something I don't think about. And it integrates my thinking. We know from studies that we believe that people who possess greater wealth and power have more desirable qualities than lesser affluent people. More terms. Legitimation. It just means the willing acceptance of prevailing institutional systems by members of society. In other words, things become legitimate to me. I think that's just how things work. It's just how things are. Work ethic. This is a notion that hard work is the key to success and the most noble of human activities. It permits the view that success is the result of willingness to work hard, and my failure is the result of my ambition. Okay, this idea that if I just work hard enough, I will be successful. We have some ancillary beliefs in our society as well. So the idea that human nature is unchanging and that greed and competition are human nature. Well, if we think back to that dawn of man thing, the hunter-gatherers, they were not competitive. It was actually a very cooperative, collaborative community where people shared with one another. So that challenges that. Our belief of the neutrality of social institutions, the idea that they're not serving the interests of special groups, that helps legitimize ideology. And our fear and doubt of other systems, the idea that other systems are not seen as viable and credible. We dismiss what's going on there or their outcomes because we don't see them as viable or credible. When we look at this chart, we see some interesting things as well. Growth of family income. So we can see from 1947 to 1979, there was massive growth across sectors of income within society. The group with the smallest amount of growth was the top 1%, which makes sense. They're the smallest group. But then after 1979, we see this massive decrease in prosperity among income groups. Look at the bottom 20% there. They have almost no growth whatsoever. And then this explosion in growth for the top 1%, the smallest group of us. Now, they put forth some theories here as to why that's happening, but the big takeaway I want you to have is that from 1979 forward, we've had this explosion of social inequality. More terms. Socialization. That just refers to the process through which people learn their society's culture. We learn how to act, who to be, what's right, what's wrong, what's normal, what's okay, what's not okay. Social reproduction. This refers to the structure and activities transmitting social inequality from one generation to another. Education is a big form of social reproduction in our society. Capital. That refers to the resources we possess or acquire. Now, typically in the real world, we talk about capital, we're talking about money. And we may be talking about that too, but if we are, we'll say financial capital, which is wealth, salary, possessions. But more often than not, we're talking about other kinds of capital. So cultural capital, shared outlooks, knowledge, skills, and behavior passed from one generation to the next. Human capital, attainment of skills, knowledge, and expertise required to be successful in various valued ways. Social capital, that's people who help you pursue valued objectives. And that could be individual people or it could be networks of people.